Hi, everybody. Welcome to the set of The Right Side with Doug Billings. A quick shout out to a friend of the show, the Commander's Artist. He got started doing some work for the president, therefore the name Commander's Artist. But he's also become good friends of not only this program, but he's a good friend of General Michael Flynn's. And you ought to check out this guy's artwork. Go to his website, www.thecommandersartist.com, and check this out. Look at this stuff that I'm showing you. It's incredible. The patriotism, the quality, the uniqueness of these prints is astounding, and you can have one. Imagine one framed in your home or your den, in your study, or in your studio, like this. They're beautiful, and you really do need to check them out. A personal friend of General Mike Flynn's, a personal friend of this program, thecommandersartist.com. And when you go to check out, make sure you enter the coupon code DOUG, D-O-U-G, that's me. You get a little discount from the Commander's Artist when you do that. The coupon code is Doug. Check out this website. Check out the artwork. Patriotism galore. And it's really, really cool, good quality stuff. Top shelf, as they say. Thecommandersartist.com. Cheers. Hi, everybody. Welcome to The Right Side with Doug Billings. Thank you very much indeed for watching and listening to us. We are on all of the major podcast platforms. Please remember to subscribe to your favorite podcast platform, The Right Side with Doug Billings, and subscribe to us if you're watching us on YouTube. Subscribe. Hit the red subscribe button below, and you'll get notifications of future programs. We're also on Rumble. You can find us on The Right Side with Doug Billings on Facebook and almost every social media platform out there. Today, a really good conversation again. She's been on the program 3 or 4 times. KrisAnne Hall. She is a constitutional attorney, and you need to find her on her Facebook channel and her YouTube channel. She's going to speak to us today about the constitutionality of vaccines, about mandates surrounding vaccines, how they apply to your employment, how they may apply to your ability to travel, not only domestically, but around the world. We're also going to talk about executive orders being enacted by Administrator Biden. And we're going to get her opinion about why is it that the Republican Party doesn't seem to be filing injunctions against Administrator Biden's executive orders. And then finally, we're going to wrap up with the topic that's really one of the most popular and controversial topics that I get questions about all the time. The United States as a corporation and the act specifically of 1871. And a lot of people hanging on to the March 4th date as if it is a date whereby there's going to be some sort of reset. So we will get a constitutional analysis of all of that with KrisAnne Hall right here on The Right Side with Doug Billings. Here we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to The Right Side with Doug Billings. Today, a very special guest, KrisAnne Hall, is with me again. KrisAnne is a constitutional attorney and the founder of Liberty First University, an online university where they give educations, not degrees. KrisAnne, thank you for your time today on a busy day. Thank you.
Oh, it's always my pleasure. I love being with you. You're a fantastic host, and it just makes my life easy.
Oh, thanks, KrisAnne. Hey, real quickly, we've got 3 topics. The first 2, just kind of real quick hitters, and then we'll go into some detail about the third one. And they are, I'm going to talk about the vaccines. I'll talk with you about the executive orders that Administrator Biden is putting forth. And then I want to talk to you about this rampant topic that I get a lot of questions about, the corporation, quote unquote, of the United States. And we'll spend most of our time on that one. But real quickly, KrisAnne, before we get into this, tell people where they can find you, because I think it's important that they do find you and they find, Liberty First and your teachings, your YouTube channel on the Constitution, on a variety of different constitutional topics. Where can we find you?
Well, my brand is my name. So KrisAnne Hall, KrisAnne Hall. And that's how you find me on social media. Now, you won't find me on Twitter because I've been Twitter banned since August. I was in the first wave. Don't ask me why or how. I have no idea. Twitter has refused to disclose why they suspended my account. They didn't actually cancel my account. They just suspended my account and are refusing to reinstate it. So, every day it's suspended, it's a permanent banning no matter what happens. Right. So, but I am on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, I'm on YouTube, I'm on DLive, which is a video platform that carries our podcast Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we talk about current events from a constitutional and principled perspective. So the tagline for our podcast is liberty over security, principle over party, and truth over your favorite personality. So we are not apolitical. Apolitical is an impossibility when you live in society, but we are nonpartisan. And that doesn't mean that I don't mention Democrats or Republicans. Some people think that because we're nonpartisan, that means we don't talk about Democrats or Republicans. No, what that means is that on our show, we are free to criticize both parties for wrongdoing and free to praise both parties for their right doing. And so, that's kind of where we come from. We also have a libertyfirstuniversity.com, libertyfirstuniversity.com, where we teach American history, the principles of the foundational principles of our Constitution, the actual practical and proper application of our Constitution through its articles, sections, and clauses. And we even have some faith-based classes in there as well. And these classes are online video streaming, learn at your own pace. And really, we have students of all backgrounds, all educational, all age backgrounds. We have, I think at this point, we have a couple hundred homeschool students who are enrolled. We have adults ranging from, just basic education to groups. We have a couple groups in law schools of law students that are enrolled at Liberty First University because they realize they're not getting that proper education from the law schools. So the constitutional education. So those are the things you do. So KrisAnne, KrisAnne Hall, Hall, and then libertyfirstuniversity.com. And then finally, I'll mention we have a project that is almost to completion. It is a documentary, and the documentary is titled Non-Compliant. And it is a training video on how to restore the constitutional republic at the individual, personal, local, and state levels. And you can find the trailer and more information about the movie at noncompliantmovie.com. Noncompliantmovie.com.
Excellent. I'm glad that you said all of that. It's so important, and it harkens back to a show we did the other day on education in America and how it's especially history education. And in light of this crazy 1619 project that's been put forth. So I'm happy because this audience that we have will be excited to hear everything that you just said, from teaching the youth at home through homeschooling all the way up through the university and law schools. I think that's excellent. We will promote that. With your permission, we'll promote that documentary and your the website Liberty First and your own brand. I think it's just important that everybody knows about you, KrisAnne.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, well, let's dive in real quickly. Our time is limited today. I promised I'd get you out in good order here. We get a lot of questions on the show about the COVID-19 vaccine. Specifically, can an employer mandate that I get a vaccine? And if I don't want the vaccine, can they legally fire me? I'll let you answer that one. Then I've got a follow-up to that.
Well, there's two different aspects that come into play when you're talking about an employer. The aspect would be that it is a private property, and you don't have a right to have a job in private property or private industry. And so if an employer creates a job requirement, you choose to comply with that job requirement based on your desire to work there. So if you don't want to meet that job requirement, then you have to find a new job. Now, legally speaking, there are limitations based on civil rights laws and Americans with Disabilities Act. And so by the 1964 Civil Rights Act, you can't discriminate against hiring or firing people based on race, color, religion, creed, that sort of thing. And the Americans with Disabilities Act claims that if you are a place of public accommodation, which is a classification of private business created through the Civil Rights Act, that you serve the public, then you can't discriminate in your employees based on medical discrimination. And so while a private business owner under private property rights ought to have free rein to determine the qualifications for employment within the law itself, and we could have a different show where we talked about whether those laws are proper or not, but within the laws themselves, they are limited in their imposition of those private property rights based on discrimination, whether race, religion, sometimes sexual orientation, now depending on what state you're living in, and on medical reasoning. Okay. So the short answer is yes, an employer can mandate a vaccination within the confines of laws establishing anti-discrimination practices.
And if I were to say to my employer, I'm not going to take it due to my religious beliefs, would I have to prove my religious beliefs?
Yeah, you would have to show that your beliefs are based on, and it wouldn't have to be religious, it could be conscience. So freedom of religion, freedom of conscience is are in the same realm. Okay. Now, do recognize some states do not recognize religious or conscience exemptions to vaccinations. And so then you will have a difficult task in showing that the Civil Rights Act would then apply. But remember, when you have things that are established by law, you can make the claim. Your employer does not have to recognize your claim, because the remedy then becomes a lawsuit. And so if you are planning on making the claim and your employer fires you, you can't be upset about that unless you're ready to take it to trial. So you're going to have to find an attorney to represent you, to bring a discrimination claim. And so it's not just an automatic thing. And this is not something that your sheriff or your local prosecutor is going to be handling. These are civil claims, not criminal claims. And so it would involve a legal action or lawsuit.
Okay. So one final question on this aspect of the question. If I have a belief that abortion is murder, and if a vaccine is found to be made with aborted fetal tissue, would that be sufficient religious objection?
It could be, yes. It could also be a sufficient conscience exception too,
right?
Because,
yes, right.
Because you don't have to be per se a member of a particular religion to be opposed to abortion or the murder of children.
Good point.
Or even in the sense of it, the use of biological human beings or even animals in the creation of a vaccination could be a conscience violation.
Okay, good enough. All right. Same question, but let's apply it to transportation.
Right.
Are we going to have to carry a vaccine ID card, and is that legal constitutionally speaking?
Well, now you have to sort of compartmentalize this. So if you're talking about Uber or Lyft or a private taxi company, the private companies can set the standard for the use of their services. Okay, so that falls into the same realm of a store or a brick and mortar or something, a private company, within the fact that they, you still have the limitations. You can't discriminate, but you're going to have to sue them in order to change, to really create a standard of that. Now, for public transportation, now the issue becomes a little bit more clear, because we've actually gone through this before. And we have cases that stream from legal precedent cases that stream all the way from the Supreme Court down through federal district courts that are going to make it very difficult for public transportations to require a vaccination card to travel. And I would suggest to you that that water even gets murky when you're dealing with a private business that takes, that accepts or has used a significant amount of federal money. So we're talking about airlines, right? So any industry like an airline who has received billions of dollars of federal money, now you've created a sort of quasi-governmental agency in which they can be held accountable to government standards because a significant portion of their funding comes from tax dollars. And so we have a Supreme Court case that dates, I don't know, I think it's all the way back to the 1950s. Where the Supreme Court, and I'm looking at my computer right now, the Supreme Court wrote that the right to travel is an inherent element of liberty that cannot be denied to American citizens. But it says that although the executive, meaning the president, the executive branch, may regulate the travel practices of citizens by requiring them to obtain a valid passport, it may not condition the fulfillment of those requirements with an imposition of rules that abridge basic constitutional notions of liberty, assembly, association, and personal autonomy. And so you can be required to have a passport to travel abroad, is what this case was saying. But domestically, those kinds of requirements have not historically been upheld. Even by the existence, we already have the existence of a passport process to show citizenship that cannot be applied domestically. And so when you're talking about then religious imposition on vaccination, and you would have to then, if they require the vaccination from a governmental level, they would have to have some type of religious or conscientious objection to the vaccination. Otherwise, that would be an infringement on our right to travel. There's some really great cases too at the local level. A case called Lutz v. City of New York from 1990 reads, "The right to freely move about one's neighborhood or town is indeed implicit in the concept of ordered liberty and deeply rooted in the nation's history." And then we have another one, Walters v. Berry from 1989, that says, "The right to walk the streets or to meet publicly with one's friends for a noble purpose or for no purpose at all, and to do whatsoever one pleases, is an integral component of life in a free and ordered society." And so the use of public transportation would equate then to the liberty that is ascribed to walking the streets and sidewalks and using the streets.
Excellent. Okay, so my takeaway is that there's hope that we would not necessarily be mandated if we have conscientious or religious objections, and that people can take a deep breath, perhaps. We never know, of course, what might be thrust upon us.
I think what you can expect. What you can expect is what we've already seen through history, that the government will not per se mandate these things, but what they will do is weaponize private businesses to require them based on health code. You know, you have the Department of Health or Department of Safety or some other agency that puts the requirement on the business as a condition of licensing, and then they weaponize the business against their own customers. And that's something that we have seen at the COVID level now. But also know that all of this is new, and we have up and coming lawsuits, especially with medical discrimination with the mask issues. So we have mask lawsuits all over the country. And I am proud to say that we have a a nonprofit law firm that is part of what we do called Liberty First Legal. And we have joined with an attorney to bring the very first that we know of Americans with Disability Act lawsuit against an airline for refusing to, for actually kicking somebody off of the plane who had a significant medical complication to wearing masks.
Okay. Wow.
So if anybody is, if Doug, if anybody is interested in helping us with that, because we are a nonprofit law firm helping us set that precedent, they can go to libertyfirst.legal, and make a tax deductible donation to help us set this precedent so that the airlines have to accept an Americans with Disability Act exception for people to wear masks.
Excellent. Good. We'll make sure that we put that on the screen for us, for everyone to see. Thank you for that. Yes, absolutely. We need to go support that for sure. All right. Switching gears. Administrator Biden, I haven't quite gotten to the point where I can call him president yet, so bear with me if that seems a bit sophomoric, but
it's all right. You do what makes you happy. It's your show.
Thank you. A lot of executive orders being issued, and I hearken back to when President Trump took office in 2016. Now, he also issued a fair amount of executive orders, but not as mountainous as what Administrator Biden is doing. And I also remember, KrisAnne, that when Trump took office and started signing his executive orders, that there was an almost immediate and unified series of injunctions placed against his executive orders by the left in courts across the country. What is up with the Republican Party? Why are not we seeing these injunctions? Are they clearly they delayed and stopped President Trump in some regards? What's your take on that? And is it worth our time worrying or wondering? Is that, why not? Why no injunctions, do you think?
Well, Patrick Henry said, I have but one lamp by which my feet are guided, and that is the lamp of experience. I know no way to judge the future but by the past. And so by judging by the past, I can only draw the conclusion is that Republicans simply don't have the desire or the courage or the moral fortitude to engage in these challenges. I have sort of an opinion because of my understanding of history and the functioning of what we would refer to as the establishment portion of the Republican Party, which is the one who draws the reins, in Congress and in the Senate. So when we talk about the Republican Party, we're obviously not talking about it, at specific levels with particular committees or particular state portions. When we talk about the Republican Party, when you ask why aren't they filing injunctions, what we're really talking about is the establishment portion, because the establishment portion still carries a significant amount of power. They're not going to let anything happen they don't want to happen. And so in my experience, the establishment portion of the Republican Party is no different than the establishment portion of the Democrat Party, in that they seek power and they seek a growth of power in the federal government. And in the simplest way, the most accepted way to increase power for the federal government is to increase power through the executive branch, through the office of the president. So Republicans don't challenge generally presidential power because they want to have presidential power. And they also understand in the long-term vision that, yes, we have a Democrat president today, but whether it be 4 years from now or 8 years from now, there will be a Republican president. So the power that the Democrat establishes today will be the power that the Republican starts off with tomorrow. And that's part of the problem that we have with Joe Biden. Under Donald Trump, the a good segment of the Republican Party and members of the Republican Party were not opposed to expanding presidential power while Trump was in office. And that's a challenge that we deal with because people are just by nature tribalistic, and spiritually we are searching for a king, even though politically we should know that's wrong, and individually from a liberty perspective we should never want a king. But we have a tendency by human nature to gravitate towards saviors and people saving us, and the person who's going to do everything so we can sit back and do nothing at all. And so in that human nature realm, along with the way Donald Trump won the hearts and the minds of many people, there were many, many people who even considered themselves limited government people, conservative people, constitutional people, who agreed to the expansion of presidential power under Donald Trump. So where Donald Trump left off is where Joe Biden starts. And so now you see what happens when you agree to an increase of presidential power. It doesn't go away when the guy you like leaves office. It is actually going to expand when the next one comes in.
Well said. I appreciate hearing that. Absolutely. It makes perfect sense. And to your point about people wanting a savior or so forth, I personally loved President Trump, thought he was great. And I had a show on just yesterday. We had General Mike Flynn on, and people, Mike Flynn is dealing in reality.
Right.
Administrator Biden is in the Oval Office, and there are a lot of people that don't want it that way. And there are a lot of people who think that there's going to be this great reset, and they get disappointed because their quote unquote savior, or person who is supposed to be delivering this great news, in this case, General Flynn, doesn't give them the news they want to hear. He gives them a dose of reality, and they crumble. And it's as if the wind is taken out of their sails. I have always said on this program, two things are going to see us through to the light. And one of them, the first and primary one, is determined prayer. First of all, relationship with God, and determined, but second of all, determined patriotism. The hard work of it all, doing the hard work at the local level that helps us, root out, if you're a person who doesn't want to see this commune socialist trend in America, to root out that, and also the rhinos, the people that would not typically support what you think your opinion is in politics, but root them out. And there's no quick fix. There's just not.
Right.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I got on a bit of a soapbox there. I want to just ask you one final question, and this is a big one. A lot of people that I hear from are talking about, they are curious about, and I think mistakenly hopeful about this whole conjecture about, quote unquote, the corporation of the United States, and March 4th, and we're going to have this great reset, and somebody, maybe Trump or whoever, is going to come back in and save us from, we're going to become now, either uncorporated or whatever. Lots of conspiracy theories, lots of conjecture. I want to get your honest opinion about all of that from a constitutional point of view, and also perhaps a bit of your personal opinion about that.
Well, let me just start off by telling you that I did cover this on my podcast, and we actually extracted that section from my podcast, which is generally an hour, and made it a shorter video. Okay. So if you want the full explanation and full discussion on that, which is more than what we have time for today, if you go to my YouTube channel, KrisAnne, KrisAnne, and Hall, HALL, KrisAnne Hall, you find my YouTube channel and you go through our videos. It won't be very far down because we did it very recently. I talk about the 1871 Act. So just, because we don't have the time to get into the kind of detail that I think is beneficial to help people understand where they should stand on this issue. From a constitutional perspective, it is a very simple issue. The Constitution does not authorize the federal government, whether it be Congress or an executive branch or some secret agency, to create America as a corporation. That is not a delegated authority. So under Article 6, Clause 2 of the Constitution, any act establishing the federal government or the United States as a corporation under Article 6, Clause 2 is a null and void act to which no one is bound. And so it's like an illegal contract. If you had a 15-year-old who went to sign a contract to buy something, that would be an unenforceable contract because the legal authority to create that contract does not exist. Okay. So an act of 1871 that is alleged to have created America as a constitution is an illegal act, which means it is not binding and it is unenforceable. So the solution to this is simple. You simply follow the Constitution. You restore our proper constitutional structure. You don't need to repeal it. You don't need to override it. You don't need to write something new to overturn it. You don't have to wait for it to expire because legally speaking, it does not exist.
Okay. So we're not going to return. We're not that all of that. It just simply doesn't exist. It's a moot point. It's not worth discussing.
Well, I think it may be worth discussing if that's how the parameters are how we're operating, but it's worth discussing when understanding the solution. Okay. So the solution is not waiting for a reset or waiting for something to expire. The solution, if this is actually practically how our government is operating under an illegal contract or an illegal act, the solution is not amending the Constitution, rewriting it something, or waiting for some savior to come and overturn it and create a reset. The solution is the people getting control of their state and local governments and operating as a proper constitutional republic, which will, by default, undermine and undo anything that was done through an illegal operation of the federal government.
That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Back to the state, local level, where the people with determined patriotism have to do the hard work of it all. Yes.
Yeah, and that's really the crux and the rub at the same time, because the attractive nature of the 1871 Act narrative and the March 4th narrative is, hey, woohoo, I can still sit back and do nothing but sit and type behind my keyboard and be on social media and criticize people for wanting to do things and discourage them. Oh, that will never work. This will never work. You can't do this. You can't do that. And so you sow seeds of discouragement, and it's okay because, somebody's going to pop up and fix it all for you. But remember, Benjamin Franklin said a republic if you can keep it. He didn't say a republic if the president can keep it, or a republic if Congress can maintain it, or the Supreme Court can defend it. All of the onus to the proper function and maintenance of our constitutional republic lies on the people, and it always has and always will exist at the state and local level. So we actually have to push away from our keyboards, get outside, get involved, state and local. Make sure you have a sheriff that is a constitutional sheriff. If you don't, then that should be your job number one, to make sure that you get one in the next election. And you need to make sure that the legislature, your counties, your governor, all that. And then inevitably somebody comes up and says, well, the elections are fixed. We can't, there's so much fraud. Well, number one, we know the fraud that existed in the last election. We have 2 years to make sure it doesn't happen again. But that has to happen at the state and local level. You need to get involved now with legislation that will prevent that kind of fraud from happening. So number one, getting involved in state and local politics will prevent fraud like we saw this last time in the 2-year midterm elections. And number two, if Americans let me just make the group smaller. If people who considered themselves conservative, even Constitution leaning, and I mean, not just those who are hardcore constitutionalists like we are, but people who are conservative Constitution leaning, if they are active state and local, like we're supposed to be according to our constitutional republic design, the voter fraud could not even happen. We would be such an overwhelming force.
Yeah.
that it would not be possible for an election to be stolen by voter fraud.
Amen, sister. Amen. I have said similar things, and you're exactly right. We had no better education in all of that than immediately following November 3rd, when we saw,
Right.
Rudy and others in front of state legislatures,
Right.
where we need to engage as patriots, as conservative constitutionalists. That's where we need to engage. And we cannot give in to the temptation to give up and say, I'm never going to vote again. It doesn't matter anyway. So what's the point? If George Washington were to give up in the face of the adversity that he faced, I mean, come on, we can do this. We just need to be unified and determined in our patriotism. So I'm so thankful that you said that.
Now, personally, for me, it's in my personal fundamental beliefs, it is extremely disrespectful to everything that our founders actually sacrificed and went through to give us a constitutional republic, to just simply say, oh, this voter fraud, I quit. Yeah. Look at everything that they went through. We lost when we started engaging in peaceful noncompliance with the British government. We had people who were being arrested, who knew they were going to be arrested for engaging in the peaceful noncompliance, who knew they were not going to a 2021 jail. They were going to a prison ship where their life expectancy was a matter of days. More people, twice as many people died on British prison ships waiting for trials than died in the entire battle on the battlefields during the entire revolution. So we have to understand the sacrifices that they made to give us this, and to simply say, oh, the voter fraud, I quit, there's no point in voting. That it's just, to me, it's a very, very sad state of mind and a very disrespectful attitude, given everything that people have sacrificed over the years to establish a place where we have the kind of opportunity for control that we have.
Absolutely. Well met. Well said. I appreciate that very much, KrisAnne. And on that, I think we'll wrap up, and I'll let you get back to your busy schedule today. Is there anything else that I missed, or anything else that you want to say before we say so long?
Well, the real solution is this, Doug. We must get educated individually. Then we must get educated as groups. We must organize. We must activate. But none of those things will work unless we add the element of persistence. We must be dedicated to a victory end result, whether that be in our lifetime or our children. We can never, ever give up. And what I'm going to do, Doug, is I'm going to have Janet give you the link to the video that I did on the 1871 Act, so that you can maybe share it with people and help them understand from a deeper education and historical precedent perspective. You bet. I will be happy to do that, and I'll put that in the description of the video on my YouTube channel, so it's always there for people to see. Great. Right. Thank you. KrisAnne Hall, ladies and gentlemen, find her on YouTube and Facebook. Liberty First University, an online university that she heads up. You need to find this patriot and this incredibly gifted constitutional attorney. KrisAnne, thank you very much for taking time to be with us here. I appreciate you. God bless you guys. Thank you. Thank you. So long.